Huh? Huh? Yeah.
I'm Jena Miyu, and this is a Black Diaspora. This show is meant to encourage, educate, and elevate Black and mixed-race non-believers. Through my pre-recorded conversations with the following individuals, my goal for you, as viewers, is to allow yourself to be open to new experiences and allow yourself to empathize with these journeys. Here is one of those stories.
I'm mixed race. I'm more like Hawaiian, and my mom was like 50% Hawaiian or whatever. But I think, like, for me, race is kind of an imaginary thing to me in a way. But in a way, it's if I would say, I probably view myself as white only because the world may view me as white. As far as like how I personally see myself, I just see myself as me.
How we define ourselves as non-believers, it's all our own. There is no scripture, no book, no doctrine that we as atheists follow. In fact, none of that matters to our everyday life. What is important to us and what we value for our own selves, especially when we leave faith, well, honestly, who should give a fuck? Your life is your own, and how you view and see yourself and live that life, let that be your way and your own journey. Enough of this world sees what they want to see and judge us how they want to judge us as atheists. And in fact, just judge us just as people. Through my talk with Scott, it certainly revealed a lot of what I struggled with when I left my faith. Identity.
The definition of being black or whatever, it's like maybe it doesn't really have a lot to do with your skin tone at all. Like, black is more of an attitude or a culture, or it's like something that you carry with you as a person with more melanin in their skin, but mainly it's like it's something you carry with you, in your essence, so to speak. Like,
right. Because it can both be seen as your skin color and culture wise. And, as we speak about things in regards to, black culture, black skin, what it means to be black, stereotypes, things like that. I've seen you reference this before and many others, and I have said it, we're not a monolith. We don't fit all under this one umbrella. We come from very different backgrounds, very different tastes in music and art and food, various things, and how we identify ourselves, who we seek to love and have relationships with, our friendships with, or where we feel more comfortable in certain spaces.
Yep. Oh yeah, I can speak on that. I can really speak on that because I have family that are African Americans. I have family that are Africans. I have friends that are Haitians, Jamaicans, and a lot of these folks within their conversation is going to be totally different, and it's going to be totally different culture, like food, dress, attitude, on so many different levels, music, everything, you know.
So I'll start off simple. Go ahead and state your name for us and your background as far as either presently being a believer or non-believer. And if not a believer, then, what was your previous faith?
Yeah, absolutely. So my real name is DeLon Scott Williamson, and mainly I was called Scott coming up. So most people call me Scott, but other people call me DeLon. So that's a whole other story. But that's my name. As far as my beliefs go, like, yeah, I'm more of a skeptical person right now for a lot of reasons. So I'm not really a believer. I identify as an atheist. I don't really believe in God. I don't believe in the stories of religion and the narratives of any religions, anything like that. I'm just not convinced of it. So I'm one of these, what you would call an agnostic atheist, meaning I don't know if the gods exist, therefore I don't believe it, because it doesn't follow that I would believe some things I don't really know. That's just my own personal opinion on it. But I guess I have, I look, just like anyone else, I look for meaning in life, purpose and meaning and some of the deeper things in life, why am I here? Where do we come from? But all of these things kind of like are answered through science, and they can be answered through philosophy, and maybe just self-reflection. And it really doesn't have a lot to do with other people and what other people have to say about a lot of things that, for me, I think a big value for me is to say, I don't know something, so that in that
Right.
way, it's the beginning of knowing anything. If you don't know something, then that's where you start. That's how you can begin to explore and have a motivation to learn. But if you know everything, then damn it, there's no really reason to go out and explore anything. You know it all. And it's just a terrible, attitude to go through life thinking that you know everything. But that's just my own, I guess some would call it a spirituality, but I don't see it that. I just call it, that's just my psychology.
Yeah, and I think that's just the more honest approach because, just giving the answer of I don't know is still an answer. It's a response to a question. I know there have been many a times where I'd be frustrated of someone that says, saying I don't know is not an answer. Well, it's my answer. It's my response to you asking what's out there. What is this? What is that? It's a response. It's still classified as an answer because I'm honestly addressing you in the way that I know I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's as simple as that.
It's beautiful for me because it's what's opened up my mind to explore other things, even other religions. Back when I was a believer, the whole value was to know and to have no doubt about your beliefs, right? And it was all about, not opening your mind to other ideas, because to do that would be like opening the door to the devil, or it's like a way of opening the door to your weakness. It's like a weakness to say, I don't know something, or to open your mind towards something. Oh, you're just being, influenced by so-and-so, and you're not thinking for yourself. And it's actually, when you're falling into religious beliefs, you're not really thinking for yourself there either. That's the definition of being a follower. I'm a follower of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
You're actually just a follower of what people have written about somebody, or or the interpretation of that, text or whatever. And so, just growing out of that, it was kind of a no-brainer. Like, I don't know, like a lot of people say they came to be an atheist at this point, or they became to be out of their religious beliefs at this point. And I don't think that really happens for most people, in my view, in my experience, and especially not for me. For me, I think I doubted shortly after I became a believer. It was like always a doubt. And I think that if you don't, I think I just didn't admit it. And most people just don't admit that. But people have doubts all the time. And they just don't really spend a lot of time dwelling on it because it's causing them cognitive suffering and dissonance and stuff like that. So, but I think I really fell out maybe months before I even left my, my religions and stuff like that.
So I'm interested to know. So you said religions, plural. So you were attached to many. Like, what were they?
I grew up in the South, and our family were traditionally Southern Baptists, and my grandma was a big Southern Baptist lady. She gave to the church, and she was always there every Sunday. And whenever she had us grandkids, I mean, we were working in the backyard, and then on Sundays we were going to church, with her and going along, doing all these church activities. And so she kind of like wanted to really put that in our head that, this is, you need Jesus and blah, blah, blah. My grandma used to really be like, you kids aren't being raised right. These parents today, they don't really send their kids to church. And so she'd make up for it by making us all go to church, and this and that. So I grew up into that a little bit, but I was, as a kid, especially as a teenager, I just got, it was like the last thing on my mind was that kind of stuff. But then I think you get to an age, and I think this is like 18, 19 years old, when a lot of people, I think your brain, you start trying to identify with something, and then that little spiritual bug might kick in, or it might turn you away from being religious.
Yeah.
Maybe if you grew up in it, you get around that age of 19, 20, you're either going to run from the church, you're going to run right into it, depending on the person, right? And so I think at that age, I got really interested. I just started thinking about life and thinking about my brain. My mind started expanding on a lot of things, and I jumped into like Church of Christ and going to these Pentecostal churches and exploring that side of life and just seeing. And all that stuff seemed really magical and like, wow, whoa, this stuff is deep, man. This stuff is like crazy, but then it was it was kind of superficial for me. It was kind of like, okay, people falling out. Why ain't I feeling all of this? What kind of game is this shit? It's like, I thought it was just bullshit. I'm like, whatever. But then, there was something in me, though, like I wanted to believe in God, and I wanted to believe in all these stories. And, I had friends who were affiliated, or they had family members who were Jehovah Witness people. And at that point in time, I had moved in with my high school sweetheart, and she was African-American girl, and, her family was very religious. Like her dad was a 3rd-degree Mason, and he was really into that. And so she was kind of rebellious against that whole thing because he was very strict and all of this kind of stuff, So when we moved in together, we kind of lived in like a little shady, bad old neighborhood somewhere. And so everybody around us were Jehovah Witnesses. Like, I don't know what it is, but where I was at, a lot of black folks were Jehovah Witnesses. That's just how it was. It's like everybody was Jehovah Witness. So I had a lot of friends come around and people knocking at my door and sisters coming by and talking to us, and finally drug us into their kingdom halls and stuff. And it got to the point where, I got really into it. I saw like, these people are really kind of cool, especially the people that came to my door and I interacted with. I mean, it was an elder and his wife, right? And he was kind of like a father figure to me. He became like my mentor. Like anything I needed, it was a phone call away. Like I could call him if, we had problems, the gas was out or we needed money or something was going on, he's like, son, pick up the phone and call, Brother Harris, I got you. And I would call him and he says, if I can't get you, I'll get someone in the congregation to come by and take care of you. Like, it was family. And it was like, really like, these people had my back. And I felt more like a real family in that community. And so I got very zealous into that. And so I became a teacher, and I moved up in that organization. So that was probably the main religion I'm referring to would be JWs. I became really involved, heavily involved, got married because of the religion so I could be right with God. Became, a teacher over the top. But I had developed a very militant sort of attitude about it too. Like a very, because, my mentor, Elder Harris, man, he taught me, like his whole thing was to teach me to be a man. Like my whole thing was, I had a lot of anger issues. Like I had a lot of anger. And I had a lot of communication problems with my girlfriend and my wife at the time. And we couldn't communicate well. We were yelling and just being stupid, putting holes in walls and just all kinds of crazy stuff, But Elder Harris helped set me right. He was like, taught me how to be a man, like you don't treat your woman that way, dude. You don't ever yell like that. You don't have to let your yes mean yes and your no, no. That's what the scriptures say. You don't have to, that's weakness. When you feel like you have to scream and act that way, you lose respect from everyone, And he taught me that, like, just be calm, be strong in yourself, and just know who you are as a man. And your wife taught her, respect your husband, respect each other, be each other's team, and let God be that that part in your life that'll hold y'all together. So all this stuff, just was like magic for me. Like it was changing my life in a better, positive way. And who at that age could say there was anything wrong with that?
Right, because you gradually saw that difference and change in not only the life that you were living and the relationship that you were developing with your then girlfriend turned wife, you then also saw that change within yourself, changing your personality, your attitude, working on your anger issues, working on your relationship issues, and being a better, man and individual. And to some extent and level, I can certainly understand and that respect and aspect of wanting to, grow to a level of maturity that did not cause harm to others nor to yourself. So I can respect the idea of utilizing, someone of faith to bestow that teaching upon you in order to improve the person that you are and make you better. And I think there's nothing, fundamentally wrong with that. You were a JW, and if I recall correctly, your grandmother was Southern Baptist. Being a different denomination that's not Christian, true Christian, whatever that's supposed to mean, really, can be a little wrong. Could be a little wrong.
Oh, yeah.
So now you transition from being Southern Baptist, and now you JW. Grandma did not take that well.
No. She didn't like that at all, man. Neither did my ex-wife's family. Like her father was really like, oh my Lord, y'all, you ain't going for that JW stuff, are you? Like, oh my goodness. Like it was an argument every Sunday. Like we'd have to go every Sunday. We go have dinner, at their house and have Sunday dinner. And so we get out of the Kingdom Hall and we'd go there, and they'd be coming from church, and we'd all meet back at the house and have dinner and say prayers before dinner. And then, I'm praying to Jehovah and they're praying to Jesus. And it's like this big thing. It's like, oh, he's like, and it can turn into an argument, especially early on. Early on, it was something to get used to, and it was really not understood. But they had a neighbor who was a Jehovah Witness too, though. And she used to come by the house, and they were friends. So they understood each other. They already had that conversation. So it was a little better. It got a little better and easier over time on their end of it. They just accepted, they're Jehovah Witnesses, But a lot of jokes, a lot of family jokes. Oh, y'all can't celebrate Christmas, and all that kind of stuff. We get teased and all of that kind of mess. Oh, it's your birthday, but guess what? You ain't getting shit, man, because you a Jehovah's Witness, motherfucker. It's like, okay,
dang, okay, cold-hearted.
Yeah, it's like that's how they do you. But I was so into it. And I was such a debater about this stuff. Like, I didn't care. Like, I just welcomed people to just try to attack me on this stuff because I knew my Bible. And so I got my mom into studies, and, I was trying to get my dad into studies. He's too hard-headed for that. So he wasn't going for it. But, got my brother to study, my sister to study. And I was just going door to door. I was talking to preachers and, anyone I could, like all kinds of different local platforms to debate with preachers and people like that, or people at work. They just get tired of me talking about the Bible, and I was just a totally different person. You have no idea. Like, it was amazing,
I'm gonna jump ahead. Did you have a harder time explaining and rationalizing your non-belief once you came out as an atheist versus your belief as a Jehovah's Witness with your family?
Not really. It was easy. It was easy at that point in time, because by the time I came out, like I said, I had already worked out all of these things in my brain. Like, I had worked it out. I was like, I knew I had a whole line of counter apologetics. Like, it was so weird, I guess that's the kind of person I am, that if I get into something, I'm going to go into it and really like just become an expert at the shit. And if I'm against it, then I'm going to become an expert at that shit too. So I don't know. By the time I got out and someone wanted to talk about religion, I was all for that shit too. And it was like, I was like this diehard atheist guy, and they didn't want to talk to me about that either, because they're like, oh, Lord, he's worse now than he was when he was a Jehovah's Witness. Oh, my God.
And that's why I asked, because, it's too many a time where I would run across an individual that would say, I had an easier time in the light of which they were homosexual. I had an easier time coming out as gay than I did as an atheist, because to them, in their minds, there's still hope. You're still a believer, but just a different kind of believer. And you're just the wrong kind of believer because you're gay. But in this case, for you were the wrong kind of believer because you were Jehovah's Witness. Now, who's to say who's right, because there's so many freaking denominations of Christianity anyways, plus them others. So that's interesting that you would say that. But also it makes sense from your perspective, because you've already been practiced enough to, I won't say fight, but I'll say fight against your family, in a sense that to pretty much defend your prior belief as a JW. But now, coming out of that as an atheist, it was just like, well, this isn't a no-brainer. I already built up the mechanisms to defend myself against you all. And this is how I am. And you're just going to have to deal with it, or not.
That's the only positive spin I can put on all of that stuff, is being a Jehovah's Witness taught me how to have resilience and how to argue the points, like how to be really into whatever it is you're trying to do, because you're kind of forced to take the position of strength. Like, you can't be a weak Jehovah's Witness and actually survive it unless you're just a punk ass witness, Like, you got to be really into that stuff, or else it's just not going to work out. Yeah.
I never heard that shit before. I had to think, I'm like, okay.
I knew a lot of punk ass Jehovah's Witnesses too, man. They got disfellowship quick. They didn't make the cut, man. They just couldn't do it. Like, you gotta, I'm telling you, man, people think Jehovah's Witnesses are these nice little people with suits on that go around talking, and then too, another thing too was you had to be you had to be satisfied with being broke all the time. That was the thing I couldn't stand either, man. Like, man, it's funny, but it's like I wanted, like, my dad was a computer programmer, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and he always gave me books and like, son, you need to read these books and try to get good at something, you know? Because at the time I was like cutting grass and digging holes in the highway and all this kind of stuff, right? Construction work and all this bullshit. And Jehovah's Witnesses, and I was like thinking about going to college, you know, and I was asking them, hey, I'm going to go to school. You know, I'm going to try to work it around the meetings and stuff like that. And they're like, no, man. The world's coming to an end. What are you trying to get a job for? What are you trying to get your education on for, man? In 10 years, there's going to be no system to worry about. Right now, what you need to focus on is going to these doors and educating people about Jehovah God. That's what it's all about. I was doing all this work, and then we didn't have money, and it was like, man, it was like, I can easily go out here and get an education and change my situation and change my family situation. But instead, I'm biting the bullet, trying to be strong for Jehovah, you know, trying to have faith. It's all going to be worked out in the end, you know.
And you know what? That as little as I know about JWs, that makes sense to me, because, you know, you think about the Christian faith and the practices of Jesus Christ and how you're supposed to give up your earthly possessions and worship to the Lord and do, you know, community service and practice what you preach and things like that. So giving up, striving for more, going to school, working harder, earning more money is an earthly possession. None of that matters. All your work should be doing is preaching the gospel in the name of Jehovah, getting people to come to Jehovah so that they can be saved.
Store up for yourselves treasures on earth, but rather store up treasures in heaven where the moth can't, you know, eat away. So it's like, you know, it's far easier for a rich man, you know, to not make it to heaven than it is for a poor man that has nothing to make it to the kingdom of God, you know, because he hasn't got any attachments on earth, you know, and his main primary focus is to follow in the footsteps of Jesus. Jesus didn't own any property. Jesus didn't own anything. Jesus had his clothes on his back and his sandals, and he went forth, and his main priority was preaching the good news of the gospel and the kingdom of God. And he's our mentor, you know, he's the one that we're looking up to. You know, he's the head of the congregation. He's the head of the church. And we're supposed to follow him. And all men are supposed to take that example and do the same thing so that they can teach their sons and their families the same example. You know, go forth and spread the good news of the gospel. That was the whole commandment that Jesus gave, was to go forth and witness to all those. And if we're living in the last days, as you know, was prophesied about, then these are critical times, hard to deal with. This is the message that you need to be promoting. This is what your life work should be, is doing God's work, not your work.
So why did you stop promoting that message? What changed for you?
The reasons I got into it, or really the reasons you get out of it, I think it's more of how you think about yourself. Like, you always want to do the right thing, like however we define that as. And for me, it was like, I want to be an honest person, and I have to be honest to myself. And if something like this isn't making sense, you know, I presided over some cases where women's children were getting raped by elders.